Ladies and gentlemen, here is Led Zeppelin.
Messrs. Bonham, Jones, Page, and Plant. Led Zeppelin.
Ladies and gentlemen, the American return of Led Zeppelin.
Well, here we are, everyone. Episode 25 of the Zepfan All Things Led Zeppelin podcast. My name is Mark McFall. For those of you listening to the last episode and this episode, that intro is the same. That was by design. That was not a mistake. I repeat, that was not a mistake. We decided we're going to go with a static intro for now and not change up the intro every episode. And only because, I have to be honest, I was spending 2 to 3 hours just to find the perfect intro for each episode. I'd find myself listening to the concert, listening to everything Plant was saying in between songs, and all you're doing is listening to concerts all day long. So anyway, we're going to stick with the same intro, so expect that at the next one. No surprises. We have a really great show for you. We have someone coming on that saw Led Zeppelin 16 times. I'm going to talk a little bit about him in a moment, but before I talk about our guest, I'm going to talk a little bit about a few things going on. As I mentioned last episode, we now have an eBay store to offer Zepfan merchandise. So if you want your shirt, you want a sweatshirt, you want a coffee mug, or you want some cool other Led Zeppelin shirts, check out Zepfan Store on eBay or go to Etsy and search Zepfan Store, one word, and you can see us over there. And also, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, that we're now on YouTube Music. So what that means is I'm able to incorporate the podcast on my YouTube channel, Mark Zepp. So now when we update new content, new episodes, it's automatically going to update on my YouTube channel. So very cool. Lastly, for those of you that inquired about supporting the podcast, you can now support the podcast. If you look inside the bio, if you scroll to the bottom, there'll be a little blurb there. It says support the podcast, and we'll have a link. Click on it and then support the podcast. If you'd like, up to you. Let's talk about today's episode with our guest, Wayne Jablonski. As I mentioned earlier, Wayne has seen Led Zeppelin 16 times. Yes, that's correct. 16 times. Very similar to episode 22, when we had Artie on the podcast. Wayne is also from the East Coast, so he's had the opportunity to see many Led Zeppelin shows. He's here today. I personally known Wayne for 30 years. We became pen pals back in 1995 during the whole Page and Plant tour. We traded a lot, and we still keep in touch a couple times a year. Great guy. Anyone who's met him, he's got the stories to tell you about all the stuff that happened on these tours. Loves Zeppelin, just like all of us, right? He's here. Let's talk a little bit about the shows that he witnessed. He first saw Led Zeppelin in 1973. Madison Square Garden, July 27th, July 28th, and 29th. Those are the epic Song Remains the Same nights where they did the filming for the movie. He saw them 5 times in 1975. New York, February 3rd, 1975, February 7th. Philadelphia Spectrum, February 8th. New York, February 12th. NASA, February 14th, and on to 1977. Capitol Center, Maryland, May 25th and May 26th of 1977. Then the epic run, 6 Led Zeppelin shows in 8 days. Madison Square Garden, June 7th, June 8th, June 10th, June 11th, June 13th, June 14th, 6 times at the Madison Square Garden. Man, my ears are ringing just thinking about it. Can you imagine 8 days seeing Led Zeppelin that many times at the Garden? He's here. He's got some incredible stories to share with us about it. I can't wait. Let's talk to him. Our next guest is a devoted Zepp fan who grew up on the East Coast during the 1970s, and between 1973 and 1977, he seized every opportunity to attend a Led Zeppelin concert in his proximity. He has witnessed the band in concert an impressive 16 times. He joins us today to tell his extraordinary tale. Let's give a warm welcome to Wayne Jablonski. Wayne, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mark. It's a pleasure to be talking with you.
Right. Yeah, totally. And always great to catch up with you. Before calling you, I was actually recollecting, when did we actually meet? And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe we met in the mid-90s, obviously with the Page Plant tour. I was doing the No Quarter fanzine.
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, you sent me some photos of you meeting Robert Plant, and then told me about you seeing Madison, you attending the Madison Square Garden show in 1977.
Oh, yeah. All 6 nights.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. So does that sound about right when we met back then? Is that?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And ever since then, like I said, I've been following all the great things that you put out there, and
I appreciate that.
provided for us fans. Because, like I said, we're always hunting and searching for a better copy of a show, or something new, of course. So we thank you for that.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. Yeah, and it's always about, meeting people and finding out where's the better source at, especially back in the tape trading. Nowadays, everything's somewhat digital, so it's not so much, but it really made, it was very valuable meeting people back in the day because they could possibly turn you on to someone else who might have recorded them or has a better source.
Absolutely.
So first, welcome to the show. Thanks again. Sounds like you were a Led Zeppelin fan at a very young age. What age did you get into Led Zeppelin? And, what is it about Led Zeppelin that captivated you?
Well, I tell all my friends that, I'm into Zeppelin because of my older brother, John, who at the time, he was 7 years older than I, no, 8 years older than I. And so, he was, when he bought the first album in 1969 at the time, I was 10, and it was for me. I had just started to play the drums, and so having exposure to that album and putting on side one, of course, and hearing Good Times, Bad Times, I was like, wow, I want to play drums like that, and that kind of put the hook in me. And then from then on, it was like, to listen and to dive into all that music that was coming out at the time. And of course, it was Zeppelin who was, like I said, they had the hook in me, and it was always, the band that I favored and wanted to hear. And after hearing the first album, it was from then on, it was Zeppelin. And then, but I was old enough to eventually go see them in 1973. I wish I had seen them in 71 or 72 when they were in the area, but in 1973 I was fortunate enough to go see them, all the nights at the Garden when they played, and that was July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and and the middle of the summer there, hot summer nights. The tickets were $7.50.
Can't beat it.
I mean, to go all 3 nights was like, was like $22.50. All you had to do was cut a few people's lawns, and you had money. You were good to go.
Right. Well, how old were you in 1973 in July?
I was 15 in 73 in 1973.
Okay.
And like I said, they were filming the song remains the same, and none of us knew anything about it. I mean, we went to the show just thinking that we're going to see a Zeppelin concert.
Right.
But lo and behold, we see these guys with cameras up on the stage and laying down and shooting up at Jimmy while he's playing a solo and stuff and everything, and we're like, wow, they're filming this, and we're like, yeah, and we all knew it because at the time we had, we were all going to the midnight movies and going to see, Woodstock and things like that, that were playing, at midnight, and we were like, wow, they're going to put out a movie. We're going to get to go to the movies to see a concert,
Yeah.
So it was, it was a big deal. It really was. And I mean, and that was probably, a lot of people say that was their peak musically, the 73 tour. But
yeah.
I mean, I thought they were tremendous. And I mean, believe me, the very last night at the Garden to see them, they finished up with Thank You, which, that was the only night they did that. It was the last night. It was the very last song they played. And, on the Starship flying off out of the airport and stuff and everything. But I mean, that was just, maybe they were at their apex, in terms of, musical, but as far as the popularity, the band was, it was still growing. I mean, because everybody at the time was like, that was the show to go see. And if you could score a ticket, wow, that was a big deal.
Right. Well, speaking of tickets, talk a little bit about the ticket buying experience. And did you set out to go, okay, we're going to all 3 nights at the Garden, or did you go the first night on the 27th and oh my gosh, that was incredible, I want to go again?
Well, we were lucky because, like I said, the tickets, the very last night, we had tickets for the first night. And then another friend of mine that had tickets, he got sick and he couldn't go the next couple of nights. So we got to go to the shows.
Cool.
So that was our good fortune. Somebody else's illness was our good fortune. So it was really cool. And like I said, being able to go, and like I said, to our whole thing was after going and seeing the fact that they were filming all 3 nights like that, we were wondering, like, when's this coming out? Is this going to be something that's coming out like in a year or something, or is it going to be on some TV special? I mean,
yeah,
everybody had high hopes because
nobody knew, right?
Yeah, because back then, I mean, the band, they didn't have a great relationship with the press, with the media and stuff like that. So I mean, it was hard to find anything out really back then. It was really difficult.
So what was your takeaway seeing Song Remains the Same in 1976? Does it capture the band?
Oh, yeah.
What you remember seeing him at 1973?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Very powerful. I mean, that's the band. Like I said, when anyone puts in the DVD now, it's not a VHS anymore, but when everyone puts in the DVD and, you're watching the band, like I said, people that could be at their apex in terms of,
right,
musical performance, I mean, Jimmy and Bonzo are just amazing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the interplay between the members of the band, like I said, as someone who plays, drums myself, and everything like that. I mean, the interplay that was going on right then was really kind of off the charts. I mean, it was just very special.
In my opinion, the Song Remains the Same is kind of in my DNA, and I think it's in any hardcore Led Zeppelin fan's DNA. So everything's kind of based off that 73 show because we've seen it so many times. It's great quality, amazing sound. Every single lick, every scream by Robert, every jam by Jones and Bonham. I mean, it's just kind of embedded in our souls at this point.
Yeah, but the thing is, Mark, the real Zepp fans know that it's spliced and diced,
right? That's exactly it.
It's the beginning of the song from the first night, and with the with the solo from the last night, and
and a lot of that in between. And the more you learn as time goes on, because when we first saw it, I saw it originally in 1980s. But as time goes on and the internet comes out, you start hearing about this, and then you're able to pick out all the times in the movie that it's shot from Shepperton, 74. Yeah. You're like, oh man, this is not very good. This is a very strange edit, but hey, it is Zeppelin. It's all the documentation we really have other than the Led Zeppelin DVD that came out in 2003. Right. So it is an incredible show.
Oh, it's awesome. And like I said, that was, and that was like, after seeing that, it was like, okay, when are they coming back? And
right.
And as usual, it took a few years for them to come back, to tour. And but at the time, they had released Physical Graffiti, and it was, that to me, which is like, that's my, my if you're stuck on an island, you can only have one record.
Right.
That's my one record, so, but, and 75 for us, I mean, we were a little older, we were a little savvier when it came to the concert thing. And we did some incredible stuff in 75. I mean, just, right. I have got a good friend, my friend, his name is Mark Fiorella, who lives in Florida, and who also, but like he, at the time, the two of us in high school, I mean, we were kind of the lead heads, everybody, nice. everyone in high school came to us and, asked us about, tickets and shows and all different things. And so, we basically slept out for tickets in the winter, in the cold, to get tickets. Because back then they were still letting people line up for tickets, which,
right.
After 75, that didn't happen anymore because of so much of the craziness that went on. And, but, we got our tickets for the Garden because, and the Garden shows were, February 3rd, 7th, and 12th. So, we were getting, we got tickets for all 3 of the Garden shows because that's what we always did. But then, one night we were sitting and, of course, sitting around listening to Zeppelin and, probably,
doing your thing,
smoking a little bit and drinking a little bit, and having a good time. And all of a sudden we said, we should go to Philly. And we're like,
right.
Really? To Philly? The Spectrum happened to be on February 8th. And so it was like the night after one of the Garden shows. And we're like, yeah, but we don't have tickets. So what happened was we decided, let's do a bus ride to Philadelphia. And we pulled off the coolest thing that I think that any kind of high school kids could ever do, really.
Right.
We called the Philadelphia Spectrum, my friend Mark and I. We called the Spectrum, and it was, we basically fabricated that we were a Zeppelin fan group, in our high school.
Yeah.
And but there was no such club in the high school for anybody. So anyway,
Oh, you and Mark, that's all that mattered.
but we got them to sell us a block of 50 tickets.
Wow.
Okay. Now at the time, we had to borrow money. We borrowed money from Mark's grandmother, from my mom, from his mother. We had to borrow money to get up the money to get the tickets, and but the thing was, we had to go to the Philadelphia Spectrum to get them. They wouldn't send them to us. So, we drove to Philly one Saturday because we were still high school kids, and we drove to the Spectrum and we went in to buy the tickets, and they actually made Mark sign an affidavit because he was the only one who was 18, because that was like the legal age at the time. He was the only one who was 18, and they made him sign the affidavit for the tickets that, if we got caught scalping them in the parking lot, we were going to get prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We went through that whole, ordeal. We walked out of there with a handful of tickets, with 50 tickets in an envelope, and we were like, unbelievable. And then we proceeded to rent a bus at the time. This company there, we rented it. It was like $250. it was $250 to rent the bus, and Mark had to sign for that too, because he was only
18. Yeah,
who was 18. So far the tickets were $750. The bus came down to with 50 people on the bus as $5 a person. So we were at $12.50 in cost. So we figured, all right, we're going to charge everybody $20 to jump on the bus, and because then with the extra money, we're going to get beer and subs.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We got beer and food, and then of course Mark and I went for free because we organized the whole thing.
Yeah.
And but we had we did this bus ride to the Philadelphia Spectrum, which was amazing because we as everyone was getting on the bus, we collected $1 from each person, and we gave that $50 tip to the bus driver. Now a $50 tip in 1975 was a big deal.
Yeah.
So he said, "You guys can do whatever you want." So we had the Cheech and Chong bus ride to Philly. And everybody, we had beer.
That is awesome.
We had 3 barrels full of beer, and then we had subs. And one of the guys who went on the bus ride, his family owned a stub shop in our town over here, and they still do, as a matter of fact. And he went on the bus ride with us, so we got all the subs from them. And it was, it was a great ride. It was a great show. We had a group of seats. We had 5 rows with 10 seats in each row. And, we went to the Spectrum, and at the time they were just starting to get better. Because like I said, the first show at the Garden we saw, the February 3rd show, was probably in my opinion, the worst I ever saw Zeppelin.
Right.
Plant's voice was shot, and Jimmy's finger was still, he was still suffering from the broken finger that he broke in the train door. And that was probably my least favorite performance that I saw them. And the 7th was a little better. The 8th was better. And then the 12th was, in my opinion, a phenomenal show. And that was the Snowstorm show. If you've listened to the bootleg.
Right, that's the famous Flying Circus. That's one of the I don't want to say the first bootleg that came out soundboard, because we had the Dallas, of course, but that was kind of the onslaught of the Empress Valley soundboards that came out, and I've always loved that show myself, just as the audience. But I've heard recently about the Snow Show and so forth. So talk a little bit about that. What do you mean by that?
Well, that day it was a Wednesday, I believe, and I was in high school, and in the morning it starts snowing like crazy. So by like 10, 11 o'clock, there's like a foot of snow on the ground, and they're they're letting us out of school early. It's going to be early dismissal. They're letting us out at like noontime. Everybody's freaking out, going to me and Mark, going in.
Is it going to be on? Is it going to be on?
Exactly, just like planned. Yeah, is the concert guy just like, yeah? So far, we haven't heard anything. Blah, blah. And back then, there's no cell phones and
right,
internet and all of that stuff. So, and our biggest concern was how the hell are we going to get to New York City from where we live? We were about an hour outside of New York.
Yeah,
and so we're like, all right. Do we take the train or do we take the bus? So we're sitting there. Well, we decide we're going to take the bus. So we go, we get on the bus. Like I said, we got out at like 12 noon. We were on the 1 o'clock bus into New York City. We didn't get to New York till about 4 o'clock. It was about a 3-hour bus ride into New York City. So, but we get into New York City, and we always went to this place called the Bowery. It was the Bowery Bank that was right across from the Garden, and it had this little plaza because the building was like an L-shaped building, and it had like a little courtyard in it that was pretty good. You could get out of the wind, and everybody hung out there and partied there, drank there and stuff. So we go to the Bowery beforehand, and we're doing our thing, and of course, and everything, and it's snowing still and everything. And so one of our friends who he's at the show with us, and his girlfriend, his girlfriend basically, she passes out in the snow.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, dude, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And we're all like, well, you brought her, So and it's like, it's time to go in, because I mean, we know that they go on fashionably late, but it's like 8 o'clock and it's time for us to go in, And so he literally scoops his girlfriend up. And now this is something that when I tell this story to people, they're like, you got to be kidding me. It's because, I mean, it was a totally different time and era, but
right.
He picks his girlfriend up and has her like fireman style over his shoulder, because he's a big guy, she's a small girl,
right?
And we go through, and he literally hands the usher 2 tickets, and we go
with her on the shoulder.
And we go into the Garden with his girlfriend passed out.
Oh my gosh!
Now in this day and age, that would never happen.
Right.
And so, but we go into the show, and like I said, to me, that night, the band was finally, they were finally starting to feel it again. You know what I'm saying? The band was cooking, because the solo in Over the Hills and Far Away.
Yes.
Anybody that listen to that solo right there, to me, that's the best version of that song, the entire 75 tour. And it's like, it was a great night. Mark considers the Stairway version from Night his favorite Stairway of all time. And
very cool.
It was just a really great night.
And where were your seats?
I was sitting in section H, row 1, which was literally the front row of the second section. I was like half court at Madison Square Garden, but there was back then they had a space between you, so there was like and there, we had a railing in front of us, one of those fence things, type of things, which when everyone was standing on their seat anyway, because you were on the floor,
Yeah.
But it was, we were literally about half court, at the Garden, right in the center, and it was awesome. And seeing Bonzo in the Clockwork Orange outfit, was and to me, because to me, every time I went to see Zeppelin, it was kind of like a drum lesson for me, because I basically would watch Bonham. I would watch Bonham the whole night. It was pretty much him and Jimmy, something like that. It was like, and if Robert got in the way, that was okay. But we went to that show, and then as for me, I thought that was the last show I was going to see, and because the following day, I was playing in a band while I was in high school, and we were playing at a Valentine's Day dance at my high school, and lo and behold, Mark shows up while we're setting up and says, "We got to go tomorrow night. It's the last night at the Coliseum, Valentine's Day."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "We don't have any tickets." He's like, "Don't worry about it. We'll scalp tickets." I'm like, "All right, I'll go." it didn't take much to talk me into it, and the two of us decided we were going to go to that show, and then that the following day, I got up. I'm telling my mom and dad, hey, I'm going to the Nassau Coliseum with Mark today. Going to see you. They're like, you guys don't have any tickets. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. We're going.
We'll
anyway.
figure it out.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out. So and so at the time I had just made some money from the night before playing at the dance. So I got money to go, and Mark swang by, and once again, it's the remnants of that snowstorm from the 12th, which was a few days ago. And we drive out to the Nassau Coliseum, which is a good ride from here. It's about a 3-hour ride, 3.5 hours.
Wow. Okay.
So we get out to the Nassau Coliseum, and once again, we get there around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we decide we're going to go inside. And we're just going to go to the window, to the box office, and see if there's any tickets re-released or anything like that. So then we go in and we go up to the window, and there's a lady behind the window, and she's, we ask her those questions, and she basically laughs at us, and she says, "No, this show's completely sold out." We're like, "Oh, okay, thank you." So we walk away, and we're inside because it was freezing cold outside. We're inside in like the lobby where all the ticket windows are, and this guy comes up to us and says, "You guys need tickets?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I got 2 tickets, and it's $50 for the pair." And now, once again, the tickets were $7.50 a piece.
That's a big chunk of change back then, sure.
Yeah. And so Mark looks at me and says, "I got $25." I'm like, "Oh, I got $25." He's like, "All right." He goes, we may not get a shot at any other tickets. Let's do this."
Yeah.
So we decided, okay, we're giving the guy $50. We have no idea where his tickets are, by the way. So he hands us the 2 tickets. So what Mark and I do is we go back over to the same window we had just went to, the woman behind the window, and we say, ask her, "Can you show us where these tickets are?" And I'll never forget, she says, "Who did you kill for those seats?"
Nice.
And we turn and I'm like, "Where are they?" And she points on the map. We were 5th row, dead center.
Woo!
I lived,
Nice.
and at the time, that was the closest we had ever sat for
Right.
a Zeppelin show. And we were 5th row, dead center. I was literally right in front of Bonzo's bass drum. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at the 3 rings. It was unbelievable.
And those stages are somewhat low, right, compared to nowadays?
Yeah, the stage was great, and if you listen to the bootleg of that night, you hear the great Plantations, talking about the pagan holiday, St. Valentine's Day and stuff, and it was a hell of a show, and like I said, the band they were feeling better, and I thought the 14th was probably as good, if not better, than the 12th. But I really loved the 12th because of the whole ordeal we went through with the snow. But but the 14th, the Valentine's Day show, was utterly amazing. It was something that anyone, like I said, as a kid at the time, we had never sat that close. And so for us at the time, we were like, being there in the 5th row was like, I remember we went in early, which, we never did at a concert. We went in early just to sit in those seats because we wanted to be sitting up close. Because we had never sat up close like that before. We were like, look, can you believe we're like 5 rows from the stage?
Right.
It was just amazing. And
so did it blow out your ears? Was it crazy loud?
Oh, it was amazingly loud, but I love that.
Right.
That was my thing. I was like sitting there, like I said, that night. I can honestly remember sitting there that night, and when they were playing Over the Hills, I was like sitting and once again saying to myself, I was like, my God, they're just like blowing the roof off this
right.
place. It's like and. The Coliseum, if you remember, the Coliseum was this long oval kind of, and the sound in there was it was amazing. And from where we were, the coolest thing for us that night was when we got to turn around and see the whole place, people at the time holding up lighters or matches.
Yeah.
Because, there were no cell phones and stuff, but to see the garden all lit up like this, like the nighttime sky, it was amazing. It was that cool.
Yeah. You mentioned Over the Hills and Far Away. And for me, the 75 tours, that's when the shows always started cooking, right? Because they'd come out with Rock and Roll and Sick Again, then Plant would come out and say good evening, talk about the cross section of material. But by the time they hit the Over the Hill solo, because you had the rhythm section going, you have Jimmy just cutting loose. That's when you know like how good this show's really going to be, because that's when they kind of gelled. It's kind of like Trampled Underfoot in a way too. Just that's when they're all hitting on all cylinders.
Right, exactly. That was amazing. You know, I mean, that was for me. That was always like you said. That was the litmus test of the show. You know,
right?
How they were going to be. You know, how they were in '75 anyway. And my impression was always, like I said, when I saw Bonzo and him and John Paul in the pocket and Jimmy, and Jimmy just layering some crazy lead on top of it. I was like, wow, there you go. I mean, it's that good, and we're going to have a blast tonight.
Right, exactly. Well, let's recap these 75 shows. So New York, February 3rd, 1975. New York, February 7th. Philadelphia, February 8th. New York, February 12th. And NASA, February 14th. So it sounds like NASA was kind of the one you remember the most because being so close. But these other shows stand out at you, or any songs or any special things that happened during the shows?
Well, I mean, like I said, the third was a bad night for them. Kind of Plant's voice, Jimmy not being so great. The 7th, they started coming back again. They brought back Dazed and Confused. Yep. Which came back into the set. The 8th will always be in my mind because of the bus ride while we did, and as far as the show goes, that night, I mean, the song remains the same. Rain song medley is just amazing. I mean, it was really special that night. It's really a good night for that. And the Garden, like I said, I mean, my personal highlight is Over the Hills. Mark thinks Stairway is the best version of Stairway ever, you know what I'm saying? But to me, and to me, every night for me was like how everyone would get up and go to the bathroom during Moby Dick. Not me. I'm there watching the whole thing. That's what my friends even used to say to me. How do you sit through the whole show without having? I mean, you don't go during the drum solo. I'm
like, them, dude.
I'm like, dude, the drum solo is why I'm here. It's like, I mean, that's why I'm here, really. But everyone would be like, wow, you stay through the 18 to 20 or the 25 minute solo.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
I could imagine on that February 14th show being so close, you must have heard that bass drum in your soul and your heart. Like every time when he's just slamming it during Over the Top, it's like it must have blown you away.
Mark, for the next 2 months after that, I was putting pillows in my bass drum. I was trying to make my bass drum sound like that. You know what I'm saying? And I'll be damned, I couldn't make it sound like that. It was like.
But a lot of drummers have tried, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely, believe me. Oh no, that was a really, like I said, that was one thing, because after seeing him and the way his drums sounded, and to me, that was one of the things that really had the hook in me. From the very beginning, was that his drums sounded like drums. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, they,
solid.
They didn't sound like someone was hitting a cardboard box or something, and it was, it had that projection to it, and so, I mean, all my life, and even to this day, I mean, it's, I have, a really nice maple kit with the 26-inch bass drum and the 14 and 16 and 18-inch toms, and I strive all the time to get them to sound as close as I can to that. Because that's the thing. Because if you want to play that music, you got to have that sound. And back then, you're right, sitting close like that. After the first time, we never wanted to sit far away ever again. And that's why in 77 we did get spoiled in 77.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's dive into those shows. So the 77 shows you went to was Maryland, May 25th and May 26th.
Right.
Then all the New York shows, Madison Square Garden, June 7th, June 8th, June 10th, June 11th, June 13th, June 14th.
Yep.
So damn, that's a lot of Zeppelin, man. And that's, I mean, all those shows are so close together. That's what I've loved. I talked to other people who've gone to those 6 nights at Madison Square Garden, and it's like in 8 days or something like that. It's just incredible on, seeing Zeppelin that whole week. But talk a little bit about that, how that feeling was when, you heard they're coming back. you mentioned the ticket buying experience was a little bit different.
Oh yeah, it was all about mailing back then because
Right.
I mean after the riots and stuff that they had in some of the places, that had those
Boston.
those old Ticketron machines and stuff like that. Yeah, they said no, they were going to do it by mail-in. So at the time, between the 75 and 77 tour, Mark and I in our board, well, actually, it was when Song Remains the Same came out in 76. We went to Swan Song Records, which was in Rockefeller Plaza in New York City, and we went there and we met this young guy. His name was Sam, and
Oh yeah.
we became friends with him. We basically brought him a bottle of Stoli. We brought him a bottle of vodka, and we became friends with him. And he actually gave us each a bootleg album, which I still have the bootleg that they had confiscated, and stuff that they had up there in the Swan Song offices.
What was his last name? Sam. He was the PR guy over for the.
Sam Azier was his name.
Yeah, exactly. Because on some press releases, you'll actually see his initials in the top left or top right of the press release.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a PR guy for Swan Song.
Well, Sam was a great guy, and he was really great to us, and when we wanted to go see Zeppelin, we told him that, hey, we'd love to go to see them before they got to New York.
Yeah.
So he was looking. He's like, well, would you just go to Maryland? And we're like, yeah, Baltimore,
of course.
Yeah, sure. There's an Amtrak train. We can do that, And he goes, well, if you guys go, he goes, I'll get you tickets. He goes, there'll be tickets at the will call window waiting for you. So we're like, really? And we're like, yeah, sure. So we went and, well, how many? He goes, you and two more of your friends, 4 of you. So we went, me, Mark, and 2 other our buddies. We decided, we're going to the Capitol Center. And I remember my mom took us to the train station and dropped us off. And we took the train to Landover, Maryland. And when we went to the box office, sure enough, there were tickets,
Wow.
in our names and on the will call. And the coolest thing about the ticket was, the tickets back then said "An Evening with Led Zeppelin," and underneath Led Zeppelin it said "Guest."
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And the ticket, it was 0.00 comp, COMP.
Yep.
And we were like, wow, we have tickets for free.
We've made it.
I'm like, we're somebody now,
Yeah. Oh, that's fucking wild.
And the tickets were in the 10th row. So we literally had we had 2 nights in a row that we were in the 10th row, and it was amazing. And believe it or not, there wasn't anybody else around us in the 10th row. It was like we were by ourselves.
Oh wow.
And it was awesome. It was great. And the shows at Maryland really primed us for the shows that we were going to go see at the Garden. And now the Garden thing, to go back into the mail-in stuff, well, Sam clued us in on how you were going to get tickets for Madison Square Garden, because he couldn't give us tickets. So he gave us all the mail-in info for, he gave us the P.O. box and, the day it was going to be announced and what time it was going to be announced and everything.
Yeah, nice.
So we went to our family again to get money to get tickets, because the tickets were expensive that year. They were $10.50 a piece.
Right, you need 6 of them.
Yeah, and I need I need $63 basically, and so we and in 77 once again it was tough times. So but we went, but we needed the addresses more than anything, Mark, because you couldn't have more than one envelope coming to an address.
Yep.
So we had 6 different addresses. We had Mark's grandmother and other people, my aunt and stuff and everything. So we had all these different envelopes going different places. Well, the day they were going to do this announcement, we drove to Manhattan. We drove to New York City, and the huge post office that's right across from Madison Square Garden was where we pulled the car up to there, And just as Scott Muni was going on 102.7 at the time, NEW was the big rock station,
Yep.
and Scott's was going on and telling them, well, this is how you're going to get tickets for the Garden for Zeppelin. As he's announcing that, I'm dropping all our envelopes off in, I think it was P.O. Box 57, I believe, was
Wow.
the box. If I find the old ad that I have out of the newspaper, because they had a thing in the newspaper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Full page ad.
That came out. And we had put our envelopes in while he was just announcing it. And so as the envelopes came back to us, we ended up getting front row for 2 nights, for June 8th and June 14th, which was the last night at the Garden. We were
Right.
we were in heaven. And then all our other seats, we never sat further than like the 10th row.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
We sat in the 6th row. We sat in the 10th row. It was great. But so we had all these tickets, and we knew we were going. And as you said, the thing was, we were kind of preparing ourselves, because we were going to 6 shows in 8 days. And back then, going to a Zeppelin show, it took a lot out of you.
It's a lot of, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So we kind of were preparing ourselves for that. And
Right.
But we went, the opening night on the 7th was the only night we didn't sit on the floor, when we sat back in the old Garden. You remember how the seats were colored going up. They were red, orange, yellow, green, and blue, as the levels of the seating went going up. So anyway, we were sitting in the lower level in the red seats in section 35. I mean, these would have been great seats if it was a hockey game,
Right.
But we were literally on Jimmy's side of the stage, in front of the stage a little bit, looking right onto the stage. We were literally up as high as the stage, and it was perfect seats. And so Mark and I went that night. We were there together, because we were the ones who were going every friggin' night. And all we could think of that first night, Mark, and was we were looking at the front row where we were going to be sitting
Right.
that night, you know what I'm saying? And we were like, can you imagine that's where we're going to be sitting, And then our other thing was, we were scheming on how we were going to sneak in a camera and to take pictures.
Yeah.
Because back then, security was a little different, because they had a tremendous manager, Peter Grant, and he was not one for taping
Right.
and photography or videotaping. That's why there's so few, there's such limited stuff that.
And did you know about that? Have you heard stories in 77 about the manager and how you shouldn't be recording or taking pictures?
Oh yeah, and all the tickets said right on it, no recording,
Yeah.
no cameras,
No cameras or recording devices, I think it said.
Exactly. That's exactly what it said. And so, you were, and back then, when you're a high school kid, and like I said, at that time, that was my senior year. And I graduated from high school on the 15th.
Oh, okay.
So
great. Yeah.
So, my lead up to graduation was going to see Zepfan.
Oh, yeah.
I literally, how I got my money is I asked my parents, can I have my graduation money like in advance here? Because, and they're like, why? And I'm like, because I want to go see Zeppelin 6 times at the Garden.
Yeah, parents never understood that, or a lot of people don't understand why you need to see a band more than once.
Exactly, Mark. That was it. It's like, well, why do you need to see them? Aren't they playing the same stuff? I'm like, all right. No, I'm like, no, it's different every night. And that's but Debbie said it was just it was a total different era, of course.
Well, let me ask you, what was the time frame from the time you sent your money in for the tickets to the time you get the tickets back and know where you're sitting at?
We like I said, the day he announced it, that came out. We put our stuff in there. The newspaper thing came out that evening too, with Scott Muni putting on theirs. So I guess it was about 3 weeks afterwards, after we had gone to the city.
Yeah.
And like I said, the envelopes, when we were getting the envelopes, every time we would open the envelopes, after we opened up the first one, we were, that was the night we sat in the 6th row. Back in the old days, the Garden, going across the front of the stage, the sections were O, R, A, and C. So we were sitting in A6. We were in the 6th row, like on Jimmy's side of the stage, and we were, it was a great scene. We're like, oh yeah, and then like I said, but then we opened up the thing, and we're going, well, on the 8th, we're sitting in
Yeah.
R1. And we're sitting in the front row, and back then, like I said, that was like we had never experienced that before, and that was
Right.
and to us that was we're going to be in the front row, and we wanted to, and like I said, that's why we took the photos that we took, and that I have. I mean, we shot 10 rolls of 36 exposure film, 35 millimeter film.
What date was that? On the 8th?
On the 8th, on June 8th,
Okay.
yeah, that was we didn't bring the camera on the last night because we just wanted to enjoy it, have the fun
Right.
of the night, because we didn't want to deal with security and stuff and everything, and so we just went and had a blast on the 14th. But I mean, the 8th was, like I said, an indelible night. I mean, we have photos from it, of them, plant right in front of us playing the harmonica during Nobody's Fault But Mine. Jimmy with the double neck, of course, and all the greats, and on the 8th I have a photo, which, and like I said, that people, you can't deny this, and that's the only night I ever saw Jimmy play, a different guitar than the double neck on Stairway, because that night the string broke when the beginning of the lead, and he took the double neck off and they put on the Les Paul, and he finished Stairway to Heaven on the Les Paul on that night.
Wow.
And if you listen to the recording, you hear the little stop of him playing, and that's when he switched guitars. And I have a photo of Plant with the tambourine up in the air, and that's the only song he's holding the tambourine is doing Stairway.
Right.
And he's got the tambourine up in the air, and Jimmy's got the Les Paul, and all the lights are on. And
Did not know that.
That's from Stairway, and Jimmy on the Les Paul playing Stairway.
Wow. Okay, so they played it all the way up until the solo, you're saying, and then he broke a string and then switched out the double neck for the Gibson.
Yes.
Or for the Les Paul.
On the 8th, yeah. And it's like I said, and if you listen to the recording from that night, and there's some good recordings out there now of the 8th. During the solo, he's the solo's starting, and then all of a sudden, bang! You hear,
wow,
and all you hear is Bonzo and John Paul going, and then he gets straps on the Les Paul, and then you hear the guitar kick back in, and you can, it's definitely, that's exactly what happened that night.
So I want to go back to the Maryland shows, seeing them on the 25th and 26th in 1977, and then you just saw the 1975 shows. Right. I mean, what was the thought process? I mean, were they better? Were they worse? I mean, how did you feel 1977 was compared to the 75 shows you just saw?
77, I mean, we were, at then there was no Dazed and Confused. The show was still long.
Right.
I mean, because you were getting half hour,
the noise solo, yeah.
The noise solo, and you were getting, No Quarter was 20 something minutes,
right?
And the drum solo was 20 something minutes, so all of those things, and I mean, for us, 77 was great for us because we got the acoustic set. I mean,
true.
But my favorite tour out of the tours that I saw, out of those 3 tours, was the 75 tour. Yeah. That was my favorite tour. I mean, even more so than 73.
Right. Well, I've always felt 75 is where they were just on top of the world. I mean, they just looked the best. They knew they were rock gods. They just took the world by storm. They're on top of the world, and they just knew it, and they just looked apart. And they were, it's just something about them at that era. They just look incredibly cool.
Absolutely, they were the biggest rock act on the planet, and that was the fact. and everybody, like I said at the time, when Physical Graffiti was coming out there, I mean, as a kid, I was in my room at night with a transistor radio and like one, back then there wasn't headphones. Yeah, earpiece,
Yeah,
so,
I remember.
And I'm listening to Allison Steele, the Nightbird. She was the late night DJ on 102.7 on NEW here in New York City, and that was the first time I heard Sick Again and Kashmir and what do you call it, In My Time of Dying. and I was like, those are some they played them on the radio.
Trampled underfoot too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, trampled underfoot, and I was like, oh my God, because
Heavy.
we had already saw the shows in concert, and then we heard it on the we heard the album. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was. I think Zeppelin was like one of the few bands that they toured.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they had it backwards. You know what I'm saying? They didn't put out the album and then tour. They were touring, and then the album came out.
Right. I forgot about that. So you were seeing Kashmir before actually hearing Kashmir. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Before I even heard it on the album, because the album came out in March. All the shows I saw were in February, and and for us it was like see here and Sick Again and Trampled Underfoot. In My Time of Dying, I was like, we were like, wow, and Kashmir, of course, we knew that was going to become the new centerpiece of the show. That was just that was mind blowing, and in '75. Jimmy was still playing it on the Les Paul, wasn't he playing it on the Dan Electro?
Yeah. And I also think with 75 and 77, because with 77, we had, it's after Plant's accident. So he didn't move around as much like he did in 75. Yep. Jimmy going through whatever he was going through. Yeah. He didn't move around as much. And some nights he just kind of seems like he stood there, obviously, depending where you're standing. And then the closer you are, you always have a better view of the show and better takeaway, in my opinion.
Right.
But yeah, I think that those were the differences, even though I've never seen them. That's what I feel with 75 and 77.
I always thought 77 were the shows were basically carried by the rhythm section because John Paul and Bonzo were usually always on.
Oh yeah,
they were just they were always, like I said, they were always in the pocket, and it was amazing, and that's the thing, he's the unsung person, John Paul, because
100%,
his playing, was amazing. I mean, and like I said, that's why a lot of in '75, the band was really cooking, and I agree that they were, they were the biggest band on the planet. They were just, a monster rolling through every town that they went to. But in 77, like I said, with the things that were going on, like I said, with Plant after the accident, and Jimmy dealing with his demons, to me, like I said, every show that I saw, all you had to do was listen to the drums and bass, or when he was on keyboards, and that rhythm section, how tight they were. Because the thing about Zeppelin, you have to realize, a lot of people don't realize, the rhythm section was the backbone of that band, because it was the guitar and the vocals were all layered on top of what was going on in the background. And like I said, there were some great rhythms, and there's some things that you heard that on there that have been used over and over and over now, that have been sampled, by all these hip hop guys and everything and stuff like that. Just, some of Bonzo's beats and everything are just, just incredible. But I mean, that's, to me, I mean, the 77 tour was more commercial to me. You know what I'm saying? With the lighting and stuff and everything, and the whole, the stage, at the time, was the drum riser moved to the front of the stage.
Oh yeah,
and things. I mean, they were getting more and more into
a little bit more show, a little bit more flash.
Right, more show, more flash. More things. And like I said, the fact that the acoustic set took up a good portion, and then the three guys who were actually playing an instrument, Bonham, Jones, and Page, all of their solos all took up, a good portion.
Oh yeah.
So really, if you think about it, the shows in 75 and 73 were longer, than 77. Because those shows, there was a lot more of the soloing going on. But the improv is, like I said, once again, for us, that's why we went. We went to see that. That was something to see and something to behold, because it was Zeppelin, at their best, and that's what they did.
Yeah, and I can imagine seeing Achilles' Last Stand must have been pretty wild too.
Well, Achilles was something that I had waited for, because the album, after hearing the album, that was immediately my favorite track on the album, and so to see it live, and some incredible versions of it.
Especially the section, right? Because that's, so photogenic, but it's like, that's what you know when you see so many pictures of Page and Plant from 77.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The pictures. Like I said, when you see the pictures, I said it's gonna like we have great shots of them leaning into one another.
The crowd must have went nuts on that.
Oh, it was crazy. And the thing is, they had all the lights were up. The stage was lit up really bright at the time. They had a lot of white lights going at the time, and so you could see the crowd in front of the stage and everything. And you could tell that they knew what they were doing. You know what I'm saying? They were on top of the world, and they knew it.
So where were you when you heard Bonham passed away?
That was probably, well, I was in college at the time. I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, and I was playing football up there, and so it was a day of practice for me, and I was jogging down to the practice field, and this guy, he was my offensive tackle. This guy Ian, he said to me, "Wow, you must be really sad." I'm like, "About what? It's only practice, you know." he's like, "No." He's like, "You heard about that guy from Zeppelin, right?"
Wow.
I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, some guy from Zeppelin died." I'm like, "No way." I said, "I would have heard that." And he goes, "I'm telling you."
Right.
He goes, and right away I'm thinking, Jimmy, because that's who I'm thinking, So I go through practice, and after practice, hurriedly just get out of my stuff, and really, I didn't even take a shower. I ran back to my dorm, where I was at, went in and flicked on my radio, which was always set to the station, to 102.7, comes on, and I'm hearing the radio, the DJ, the loss of John Bonham today. And oh man, I just fell back in the bed.
Right.
I was like, I literally, I cried. It was like losing a family member. And, Mark and I, we were all set to go. We were going October 17th to Montreal, Canada. It was the opening.
Oh, wow.
The opening night of the North American tour. We had Amtrak tickets, tickets to the show, to the Montreal Forum, a room in the Hotel Versailles.
Everything's set.
All set and everything like that. And, the 25th of September, it all came to a crashing end, and we were like, whoa. And then, like I said, that night I got back and right away, on the phone, because there's only regular phones, but on the phone to all my buddies and stuff, and then my phone was ringing off the hook, because it was like I had lost a family member, people calling me up, offering me condolences and stuff, and everything, because it was, because they know that, they knew that, that was my idol, so to speak, and, it was such a devastating loss, and the fact that and even back then I kind of knew, everybody's like, oh yeah, they'll get somebody to, I'm like, nah,
nope,
there's nobody, And then sure enough, in December, when the announcement came out, that can no longer continue as we were, and I was like, see, I told y'all, and it was such the right thing to do, because it was the respect that they had for their bandmate, and the awesomeness that he was in that band. If anyone, just all you have to do is listen to some isolated drum tracks, and I recommend that to a lot of people. You want to hear what he really was all about. It wasn't all that bash and boom. It wasn't hitting hard. Yeah, he hit the drums hard, but he played with swing and with feel, because he had all that Motown influence in him,
Well, you mentioned it earlier, the rhythm section. So they could never have gotten another drummer in there.
No.
There's no way.
No,
this was an ultimate unit, the four of them, no replacements.
Yeah, without a doubt, Mark. You, like I said, out of all the shows, you've heard of them enough, and like I said, anyone who's listened and really listened, you know what I'm saying? Not just to be, having a beer and to have a deal, but anyone who's really listened, like me, I spent a lot of hours as a teenager, and then in my 20s with headphones on at nighttime, because that's how you went to sleep. You know what I'm saying? You put on some music, and when you hear the production of it, the sound going from one speaker to the other, back and forth.
Yeah, that's when
and
that
the band was just special. They were unique. like I said, they were the biggest band that walked the planet, and
Right.
and for me,
And still are.
and for me, I was lucky enough that I got to see them.
Did you see any of the reunion shows from Live Aid to Atlantic 40th or O2?
Oh yeah, I was at Atlantic 40th, definitely. I was there. I had a backstage pass for that. That was cool.
And what was your takeaway from that show being there? Because obviously seeing it on TV, the effects were not as shattering, as they say.
The sound on TV was friggin' horrible, and I
Right.
mean, somewhere and it's on cassette, but somewhere around in my mishmash of stuff, I recorded that night. I recorded I recorded Plant's little segment, and I recorded Zeppelin, of course, at the end of the night. And my recording sounds way different than what you hear on HBO. That's for sure.
Right.
Because you can hear the keyboards and stuff, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Jimmy was wasted. They waited way too long to roll them out on stage. I remember it was like 12:05 at night,
Right.
and we had been there from like 11 a.m. And like I said, the cool thing was that we had a laminate that you could go backstage. We had some food and stuff, and when we went back there, we saw what Zeppelin's set was going to be. It was written on the freaking wall, and so we that was a great concert. I mean, if you look in the video of it on HBO, you can see there's someone holding up a license plate that says that says the Zepp, and in the stands, that's my friend Mark.
And it was still early, right? Because it's pre-Page and Plant years. I mean, everyone's still kind of finding themselves in the 80s as far as what their career is. So it's kind of interesting.
I mean, well, you saw later on that year, the Outrider tour, Jimmy had Jason playing drums for him.
Right.
Playing that year. And then Plant did the Now and Zen tour, which was probably his best tour, I think,
Right.
And, it was, they were playing, and, it wasn't Zeppelin at their best. And Live Aid, I was at Live Aid. I sat through 100-degree temperatures there. I listened to Jack Nicholson to tell everybody to cover up anything that might melt because they're going to hose you down. They're wetting people down with the water. And it was we literally went to that to see that show just to see Zeppelin. And I sat through Madonna. You know what I'm saying? It was, but we went to JFK and it was awesome. We had, we were there just for that show, and
I liked the Live Aid show. I mean, they were unrehearsed, but the passion was there. You could tell they were just somewhat happy to be together on the stage. Whether Plant's voice all of a sudden started cracking and he was hoarse, and all the stuff with the flanger on Page's guitar. But there is something magical about that show, I think.
It's the drums, my friend. It's the drums. That year,
Yeah.
Phil Collins and Tony Thompson, neither one of them had a clue what they were doing.
That's a sad part.
I should have been playing drums. It would have sounded a lot better, believe me.
Yeah.
It was, that's anyone, if you listen to that, that's the whole takeaway of that. And even if you listen to an interview that Page did after the fact, he'll even tell you that they had like a 15-minute rehearsal, and neither one of those guys knew what they were doing. Phil Collins was spent. He had played in England. He had took a Concorde over. He had just played with friggin' Eric Clapton. So, I mean, he was shot, and
he didn't really know the songs either. So that's a sad
part. He had no idea what he was playing. Neither did Tony Thompson from Chic, so I just think that was just bad misfortune right there. So, I've gone to everything you could imagine. I mean,
and did you go to the O2 show?
Atlantic. No, unfortunately, we couldn't get tickets for the O2 show because I don't know how many million people were trying to get 18,000 seats, but I wasn't able to go, and I was ready to pay some serious money to go, but wasn't able to get a ticket.
Well, Wayne, before I let you go, I do have some questions I want to ask you. Just requires a 1 or 2 word answer, and then we'll go through that. Okay?
Sure.
So, favorite Led Zeppelin album?
Surgical Graffiti.
Least favorite Led Zeppelin album?
I don't know, maybe Coda.
Favorite Led Zeppelin song?
Kashmir.
Least favorite song?
Ooh, probably Hot Dog.
Jimmy Page or Robert Plant fan?
Jimmy.
Favorite solo projects?
I love the Coverdale Page, now in Zen, the walking into Clarksdale.
Do you think they should have continued after the O2 show?
Absolutely.
Wayne, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. Before I let you go, is there anything additional you want to say to our fans? I know you're in a band now. Do you want to promote your band here? Tell us what the names are, where you're playing at, how we could find you on YouTube.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I play in a really cool band called Side Effects, with a really good guitar player, my buddy John Quigley, who's a lead head like myself, and we've gone to a lot of the Page Plant shows together and stuff like that. We play a lot of a big cross section of classic rock, as Robert Plant would say. Everything from Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Deep Purple and The Who and you name
Cool.
it. And you can find us on YouTube. If you go on, you put in Side Effects 2.0, because this is like our second go around with this band. And so we're Side Effects 2.0. And there's some videos on YouTube there, and you can check us out. You can see us doing Kashmir, 10 Years Gone, All My Love, stuff like that. And we play here in New Jersey. And so if you're ever on the Jersey Shore, look us up.
Perfect. Well, come on down, everyone, to go see Wayne.
Thanks,
and
guys.
Side Effect 2.0. Thanks again, Wayne, for joining me. You have a wonderful day.
Yeah, Mark, you too. You as well. And I'll be speaking with you soon, buddy.
Very good. Oh, thank you, Wayne, so much for coming on. I've been asking you for, I don't know how long to be a guest here. So I'm so happy we've been able to sit down and kind of get you on the episode and you could share your Led Zeppelin journey. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I have. So that is it, my friends. Episode 25 is now complete. You need to reach me, contact at zepfan.com. I'm going to listen to In the Light from Physical Graffiti. You listen to your favorite Led Zeppelin track. Enjoy it. And until we meet again, have an awesome day.